faster, going off the beaten track to find solutions.
The 8th and final race of the 2008 ABSA Off-Road Championship, the RFS Magalies 400 continues right here on Supersport. And once a quick, fast and intense burst like that has been completed, the cars and the drivers need attention again.
Foster was a happy camper.
Look, we had a good position on the road. We started third on the road, so there was a bit of a track ahead of us, which I think was to our advantage. We had a good run. We really had a good run. Rafi was brilliant. He read the road well. We attacked. We went as fast as I thought that we could, because off the racing line there were dangers. There were rocks, and if you got a bit out of shape, you were going to either get a puncture or damage your car in some way. So we went as fast as we could, but keeping it pretty clean.
In other words, normal procedure for Duncan. Toyota too were pleased.
It was a very good result for us. I think the drag just showed that the Nissans do have a little bit more power than what we do in the straight lines, and being so fast here at this off-road event, I think that's where the Nissans perhaps took their time from us. It was down the long straights, but nevertheless, on the whole, I think we kept it nice and clean, had a clean run, and had quite a good result to finish second.
And all the teams had praise for the Super Production Car Class or SP category.
The series itself is fantastic. I mean, the formula's working. This SP is unbelievable. Just coming down to the last race, and 3 of us can win it. So it's good. It's good for the formula, and it's good for off-road, you know. So it's a pity about that it's such high speed here, because both Hannes and us, we had a puncture in the time trial. So if it doesn't rain tomorrow, we've got a problem.
For the motorized camp, the speed is definitely there. Now for the consistency and good luck.
Yeah, we've qualified, I think, fastest the last 3 races. So now, we never had a problem with pace. I think we just had a little bit of bad luck this year. But looking back over the last 4 years, we had an incredible amount of good luck. So we've written the year off. I'm almost happy that it is the end of the year. Yeah, I'm happy that we brought it in first overall for tomorrow morning, just to show that we still have a little bit of pace. And we'll try and go for the win tomorrow. Obviously go out to the end of the year winning the last race. But it was quite an exciting day for us so far with the little run down the drag strip. It was quite exciting. And the time trial was very quick, super high speed stuff. So quite enjoy that. And it suited the 2-wheel drive, the specials. I think we beat the Buckies here again. So they'll make for an interesting race tomorrow.
Bertolt wasn't unhappy either, but felt he could have been a little faster.
Yeah, not bad considering the circumstances. We got held up in Shamir's dust, unfortunately, which lost us about 15 seconds, and we're second on the road for tomorrow morning, so it should be a good run for the Atlas Copco team.
And that seemed to be the general verdict. Fast, all-out racing without too many technical challenges. As the last racing day of the 2008 season dawned, the smiles belied the tension in the air. There were 6 championship titles up for grabs and a lot to play for.
And not only that, drivers and teams were mindful of the end-of-the-year negotiations between sponsors and teams and wanted to finish off the year on a high note.
For Fox, it was a good night's rest after a quick run. He was pleased.
Yeah, I am. I'm very pleased. The car was brilliant yesterday. We had a really good run. The terrain, I think, suits our type of setup. So I'm hoping we can convert it to a good result today.
Now, being first on the road, will that be a big advantage, Duncan?
Yeah, today it will. There's no wind, and we're ahead of all the Buckies. So there's about 6 or 7 of them that are in a really they're close to each other, so, and we're a little bit ahead of them. So I'm just hoping we can get a gap and not have any trouble.
Yeah, it's good to be in Joburg for a race, you know, home race. So we've got full support from the whole team. All the kids and family are here. Obviously it makes it a whole lot more fun. Yeah.
No pressure on you today at all?
Yeah, I suppose the only advantage of not being in the championship race is that there's no pressure. I didn't lie in bed last night tossing and turning about strategy. We had to win the race. We're trying to win the last race. We managed to do it at the previous event. So it's the only thing we can really get out of the end of the year. You know, unfortunately we've had some bad luck. So it's quite simple. We're going to go for it. We're going to go for the win, and that's it.
With race strategies drawn up, cars ready and prepared, drivers and navigators rested and raring to go, it was all systems go and all hands on deck as the last race of the 2008 ABSA off-road season finally hit the road. And Hutchison flew away to a quick start as he led the field away.
The two-time champion certainly had a few scores to settle and was desperate to end off the season on a high note after starting off with a burnt-out wreck of a car in the Western Cape. And while we see our first chopper shots, thanks to Connie Pinard for the use of his chopper, couldn't have done it without you.
We certainly couldn't. Now Berthold and Vermeulen started 6 seconds later with the Sulvolts next. But the last mentioned were trying to win the championship, while the two cars in front of them were trying to win the race. A little like losing the battle but winning the war.
It was indeed low flying on the ground, and Vos was clearly taking it easy from the off. He nursed the Nissan over the first jump and was obviously not in a mood to take any chances early on.
The defending national champion is a man who judges things well and is not apt to make huge mistakes. The racing line on this route demanded just that. Stick to it or suffer the consequences.
What was also encouraging to see was that thousands of spectators had descended on the Krugersdorp venue and were having a fine time watching the passing parade.
Vos was, though, immediately slowed up by the dust of the cars ahead of him. And the specials can certainly churn it up.
One of those turning it up at the front was Hutchison and Bergman, who were in a mean mood early on and trying to break the imaginary string stretching back to the rest of the chasers.
The Atlas Copco was one of those, and Berthold and Vermeulen were desperate to also finish off their season with another win.
But the dust was tough for the specials. No windscreens there to keep it out of just about everything, and that includes the working parts of the engine.
Meanwhile, the championship pace setters, Cully and Quinton Sulvold, were settling down the car and the nerves. They were, after all, shooting for their first national crown.
Vos, with 3 wins in the season, tied at this stage with Grobler, knew that the pressure was on and nothing less than a win would secure him a great shot at the championship, depending on the other title contenders and how things would work out for them.
Matthews and Smith have made giant strides in the year 2008 and proved this year that they can run with the big dogs. Their car too has been reliable, and it has certainly given them peace of mind to race hard.
Total Motorsports' Shamir Varayawa and his nav Siegfried Rousseau produced victories in the desert in Botswana over 1,000 Ks and followed that with another win at Sun City. They were driving on lots of confidence.
While Cronier and Birkin moved by their teammate and had to play the cat and mouse game and wait for the right time to make another move.
Regent Racing's Michael Whitehouse and Matthew Carlson were 4th in the special vehicle battle, but had high hopes of victory here, as they've also been a crew that steadily improved throughout the racing year.
And in the second Castrol Toyota, Visser and the experienced navigator Badenhorst were making a good run back at their stablemate Cronier, and then Vos up ahead.
With the Mickelin Excel dealer team's De Brains having moved up a spot and wanting more of exactly the same.
Mark Corbett and Rudy Belzar, experiencing fuel flow problems, stalled their Century Property CR1, and a rather impatient John Moore and Leander Pinar gave it a gentlemanly 2 seconds and then started pushing.
Oh well, someone has to do it. And they finally got it underway.
The Magalies dust was debilitating, and no more than for the teams further back. Woolridge and Schultheimer were 17th on the road and wanted to make some headway very quickly.
With the 51-year-old Grobler and Moore following their example, they were a long way back early on after their punches in the prologue.
George and Sharon Barkhuizen is yet another crew that have improved at a rate of knots, and the Ruacon Off-Road Racing Squad were doing exactly the same thing here, right here in the Northwest.
And in the Class P battle for the championship, the Adenko crew of the Poseidonauts had stated their intentions clearly. They'd moved by Thompson and Campbell and were staking their claim.
For the Zermattans, it was pick a line, hold on and go, ready or not.
But the more cars that came by, the worse the dust problem became. In Class B, Lodebrain and Rudy Brits had taken the lead, putting all the pressure on Jan Kraai.
And in the special vehicle A-Class battle, the father and son combination, Nick and Ryan Harper, were getting their brand new Bat Spec 4 to listen to them.
After a solid 70 kilometers of racing, the Motorride crew's bad luck continued as gearbox trouble saw them drop out of contention, with Bertolt and Vermeulen taking over at the head of affairs and the Silwarts keeping them within eyeshot.
Variawa and Rousseau were fourth, just about 2 minutes back. And the Class P leaders, the Bezuidenots, were poised to upset some of the big-name teams. They were up into 8th place.
With the Harpers climbing 10 places to nudge into the top 10.
Meanwhile, Johan and Werner Horn in the Malolani Toyota Land Cruiser were 9th in the SB class battle.
And the Feltex Imperial Toyota with Mike Thompson and Brian Haviland aboard were solid if unspectacular early on, 10th in their class.
Labuschagne and Gerbe in Class D were hampered by the dust too. And there's a scary moment, going quickly and not knowing what's ahead.
That's exactly where you misjudge things, and in Class E things were steady as she goes. Visser and Leroux clinched 3 early season wins, and since then they've been defending. They had a 21 points worth of breathing space, just enough to relax.
And the Transco lads, Diedrich and Donnie Hutting, were applying just a bit of pressure behind them to make it interesting.
But at the sharp end of the field for the production car battle, Foss and Pitchford were in control. The former track racing star was in control nicely and keeping 2 other former champions and title contenders, Woolrich and Grobler, at bay with a superb start to the last race of the season.
Cronje and Birkin were second and applying pressure. But as in the specials, it was a race within a race. One to win the championship, the other to win the inaugural RFS Magalies 400 title.
The Ford Dio were 5th, but were about to run into some serious problems, while Grobler was a long way back after those punctures. 9th was Horn, and then 10th, Thompson and Haviland in their Toyota.
Bertolt and Vermeulen in the Atlas Copco Porter now had all the pressure and had a gaggle of cars breathing down their exhaust pipes.
And the Silwarts were doing a great job of keeping them honest just up front, but far enough to keep the dust at bay.
Voss wasn't as lucky and had to take a slightly more cautious approach. There was very little wind, and the red Magalies dust hung around like a bad smell.
Matthews and Smith had piled on the speed and were contending for a podium place. That's what they had their minds set on too.
With a very clean-looking Total Motorsport Porter with Variawa and Rousseau on board, speeding by like a bullet train, up into 4th in Class A.
And as our camera panned back, the second-placed SP car skittled into view. Mark Ring and Chris Birkin in the Toyota had to keep in mind that they had a 42-point lead over Nissan in the manufacturer's trophy chase.
Hutchison and Bergman, battling their gearbox in the Motorride Bad, just displayed more of their season, riddled with bad luck and technical mishaps.
On the way now to the designated service point back at the Tarleton International Raceway, and Regent Racing's top challenger Michael Whitehouse and Matthew Carlson had driven a commendable first third of the race. Now, the crunch part was ahead.
Moore and Pinar were driving like their car's name suggests. The Free Spirit Chevy engine car was on the way to an all-time high finish, showing up some big names in the process.
Woolridge and Scholtheimer meanwhile had the Ford pointed in the right direction, but were battling early drive shaft problems.
As for Grobler, no better way to see a master at work than to jump in the car with him and co-driver Moore.
Almost a costly wrong slot there for a man chasing hard. The Meccarin XL dealer team was still nicely on track for a solid top 5 finish in the Toyota Hilux.
Visser also right in the thick of the contest with a good drive in the Castrol Toyota.
But straying off the racing line here can be absolutely fatal. The Parkhuisens again had the bit between their teeth, and the Bloemfontein-based Rokon team's SP entry was purring along very nicely. Thank you very much for asking.
With the third Sassel Nissan Navara in the very capable hands of Ivar Tollefsen, the Norwegian, and Britt Quinn Evans solidly going through their paces.
The Zermattens with that insurmountable lead of 35 points for all intents and purposes home and dry. But they were still looking out for win number 5 just to top off a great season. Talking about top off, Kuni Pinar, the man in the chopper, again topping it off for our great pictures.
In Class B, Jan Kraai and Tito Voigt were setting the pace ahead of category leader Lo de Bruin, who heads the championship by just 12 points.
And in Class B, it was the Besaidnots who were keeping their hand in with a very effective run on the way to DSP.
On a well-marked route, De Bruin was driving just behind Kraai, keeping them in his sight, but not pushing. First finishing is the key to finishing first in this sport.
Wise words. Thompson and Campbell were also still in with the shot, but had faded a little over the first half of the RFS Magalies 400.
With SP number 22 signalling that the Malalani men, the Horns, were on their way to a very good finish at the designated service point.
And back in Class B, Bodo Berthold had his Atlas Copco bat running just outside the top 4 and going along very smoothly.
Outgoing champion Cliff Weichelt and Nick Else in the N1 4x4 were plagued by a few early season problems. But here in the Magaliesburg area, the Toyota was running like a dream.
With Graham Leith and Mike Lawrenson in that very aggressive-looking Ford Ranger in their first outing, hoping to score points for the team in the manufacturer's trophy chase.
Taylor and Houghton were a model of consistency, but they were battling in two-wheel drive for the last 100 Ks of Loop 1.
Not an easy thing to do, and Taylor, a master at it. The RFS men were in their element in their own race, and the orange and black Toyota was up a fistful of places, with Christian de Plooy driving very well.
Visser and LaRue were cruising along. Their sole aim was to get the Barbaspan Toyota to the line in one piece. The first half of the call was almost done.
The Dalmas couple, Ramon and Maurette Besaidnout, were just 7 points adrift of second and were steadily applying the pressure to finish second in the championship chase.
And back in the SP class, Cobus van Tonda and Louis Weichelt were keeping the Unifreight Ford Ranger on the straight and narrow. But not long after this, they ran into trouble.
Luckily, they did make it to DSP. The Feltex Imperial Toyota, with Tomset and Haviland in the cockpit, were inching their way up the order.
Duploy and Van Rensburg hit the bottom of this donga, with screamers blaring in their ears, as Johan van Staden and James Rousseau were battling to get a passing spot.
And an impatient Giel Nel and Dion de Kock and the Luke Zarko truggy just behind them, trying to wiggle past as well.
In Class E, the Huttings and the Trascor Hilux had reclaimed the lead and were pulling away gradually.
With Keith DeToy and Johan Hoffman in their Ford Diesel Ranger up into the best position they'd ever enjoyed in a national championship event. We are back right after this.
Vehicle